In this video, we'll be exploring the role of policy in scaling the circular economy and exploring it in the context of the Foundation's recently released paper on exactly that topic. We'll be hearing from IKEA, the World Bank, and the Dutch government. But first, let's hear from our colleague at the Foundation, Jos Bleriot, who'll be talking about the Foundation's paper and the 5 universal circular economy policy goals it identified.
Well, policy is important because voluntary commitments and relying on the willingness of certain actors to move faster than others is great and really necessary, but in order to get scale, that alone won't do the trick. So we need alignment, and remember also that the current model, really all the policy is hardwired for and by the linear model. It's geared towards take, make, and waste. And we need to go upstream. You said the circular economy is a bigger idea. It certainly is much bigger than simply glorified recycling. It's about the way we create better growth, how we preserve value, how we circulate that value as well, in order to usher in the new wave of prosperity. So those goals, and crucially as well, as the conversation becomes more global, the alignment is necessary. So what sort of policy measures are we talking about? Well, first of all, if we move upstream, of course, we need to look at stimulating design for a circular economy. It's about what we put on the market, both in terms of nature and product and volume, And of course, from that follows that notion that we need to manage those resources to preserve the value, really how do we keep them in circulation? How do we make sure that these valuable products, the invested energy, all the materials can remain in the system? So using things rather than using them up, as Ellen says often. Then the third thing is really making the economics work for the circular economy, because as I said, at the moment, it really is throughput based. And all that waste in the system, so that how we capture the price signals that really say, okay, this is integrating the impact of the economic activity as well. How can we regenerate? How can we move forward with a system that is prosperous in the long run? Fourth goal is about innovation, investment in innovation, infrastructure, and skills. Of course, we need to have the right systems in place, but also research, because it is about innovation and competitiveness as an agenda. And finally, it's about collaborating for system change, so across value chains, but also bringing the public and the private sector together.
So those 5 goals, designed to stimulate circular economy, preserve resource value, make the economics work, invest and collaborate. In our next section, we're going to hear from 2 key stakeholders on this topic. First, Steven Schonberger from the World Bank, where he'll be talking about the value of the circular economy as a response to challenges from climate resilience to economic recovery, and the role these goals play in supporting that agenda. And then we'll hear from IKEA, who will talk about their vision for a circular economy and the importance of alignment.
We're primarily an economics-based institution, but we fully acknowledge that the science is clearly indicating that we are either approaching or bypassing planetary boundaries for key ecosystem services. And that just creates a compelling argument that, basically the well-being of the planet and of the human race really depends on approaching what we do on this planet differently. The other aspect of that that's particularly germane for us as a development institution is that the incidence of environmental degradation clearly falls disproportionately on the poor and other vulnerable groups, both within countries and across countries. So this is a poverty issue in addition to being an existential environmental issue. And of course, the circular economy from a more positive side is also an innovation and business opportunity and imperative, as we're hearing from Jos and others, as the world moves more and more towards a green economy. And that's being reinforced by things like carbon border taxes, consumer requirements, and as Jos made reference to, it's being reflected in the cost of finance, both for governments and for private companies and individuals. So it all sort of comes together at that level, and then fundamentally it's just good for countries themselves because it reduces pollution locally and also hopefully reduces the amount that households need to spend on consumables, and therefore they have more money left over to focus on things like education, health, and other human capital elements. So there's all kinds of great reasons, from an existential survival of the species and the planet to the good business opportunities and employment aspects, as well as, just at the household level. So we see it at all those levels as being really important. And for that reason, we're seeing more and more circular economy work that we're engaged with, obviously in Europe and Central Asia, where I focus, but also in South and East Asia and Latin America, and now increasingly even in the African continent. So, the big question becomes, how do we make that shift? And Arnaud made reference to it. And we work very closely with ministers of finance on this. And, what we tend to do is we start by showing the economic and social implications of a shift to a circular economy. But then the next question they ask is, okay, I'm kind of convinced. What do I do? What are the things I need to do? And this publication is so helpful because it provides a nice comprehensive set of actions that can be discussed and reviewed with ministries of finance, with other parts of government, and then eventually with the broader set of stakeholders to say these are the things that need to happen in order to create an environment that encourages innovation, that encourages changes in consumer behavior, and that can really lead towards something that is closer to a full circular economy and moves from what Joss highlighted, which is this traditional reliance on a linear approach, to a completely different way of thinking of how we live our lives, produce value, and preserve the planet. So again, we're thrilled with this publication and really pleased to start using it in our work throughout the world.
For us at IKEA, we have made already a big commitment that we want to become a circular business by 2030. And the first step for us was try to identify which are the big strategic direction that will bring us there in 10 years' time. And we have identified that it will be for us key to only produce 100% circular products by 2030, focus on the use of material, using renewable and recycled material in our products, enable our customer to acquire products in a way, pass on them and take care of them, and also taking the lead and join forces with others. For us, the strategic goals and the strategic direction showed us from the beginning that moving to a circular economy as a business will require a big systemic shift in everything we do, the way we produce, the way we source our material, the way we will interact with our customer going forward. So when I see the journey that we have had as a business, I see this very much also reflected in the work that Miranda and the team at the MacArthur Foundation has done, because it really brings to the light the complexity and the bigger picture you need to have on this topic. So it will not be just about moving one single aspect and one single regulation in the policy world. It will be a systemic shift that we will need. And for this reason, I think this work will help us a lot, seeing the various pieces of the puzzle going forward, and start then the discussion on how we can then translate them in action together with all the community and the stakeholders involved.
So with a joined up vision and collaboration between the public sector and the private sector, we have an opportunity to create better growth where business success is part of the solution and not part of the problem. So of these goals, which are the most important, or where might you start? To answer that question, let's hear from Miranda Schnitger, one of the authors of the paper from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and Arnaud Patenier from the Dutch government.
So there isn't going to be a single policy measure that you can pick out and say, that will do it. If you do that one, everything else will follow from it. It depends on your starting point, as Arnaud was mentioning. It also depends. Some policy measures will be quite good at sort of reaching cross-sectoral, and that's kind of how the report has been developed. But actually, once you get into the details, you'll also need to consider the different sectors. So again, you do need to pay attention to the local conditions as you develop these things. That said, if I were to choose one goal that it would be really, really important to sort of understand, even if you were working on a different policy measure, is that first goal, because it's the most upstream. So by looking at the design of products or the design of systems, or how we operate our food and agricultural system, understanding that, from that, other things will then follow. So for example, if you are developing an EPR scheme, thinking at the same time about the changes that could happen in the way products are designed can then inform that EPR scheme to last in the long term and really support a circular system and not become an isolated measure in a system that ultimately is still linear.
Yes, as Miranda said, I think that circular design is really essential to create a lot of circumstances which are enabling the other goals as mentioned. I have to admit that even the Netherlands often still works from waste management perspective with recycling and promoting innovations on sorting and recycling facilities. We are now on the brink of developing new policies on reuse systems, which are completely different from the linear approach. So it's a lot of other issues come around, but also on circular design. So we have a program on circular design to promote companies to be innovative on that issue. Of course, the other goals are even as important. But I would choose for circular design and the upstream starting point, and to make the connection with the rest of the world. I think a lot of countries where the waste management infrastructure is underdeveloped, it is a chance to leapfrog towards a system where you doesn't need complicated waste management systems to implement and to invest in. So start with circular design, and that can be done by education, skills, etc., etc.
So the circular economy is a much bigger idea that goes far beyond better recycling, responds to global challenges, and it all starts by designing differently from the outset. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch our full conversation with Joss, Arnaud, Roberta and Steven, we'll put the link to that in the description. If you want to see what's coming up in future broadcasts and episodes of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's Circular Economy show, check out our website, subscribe to our channels to get notified every time we publish new content, and if you really want to do us a favour, like and share this video.